just a little bit of background here. I work for Bluehost here, and as I said, my boss is Jared Smith, and he's over the entire open source outreach efforts behind the parent company to Bluehost here, which I'll get to in a minute here. And so I kind of work under him here, and I figured people still probably want to see some of the Bluehost stats, so I went and compiled my own. And this time, since I'm giving the presentation, I'll probably slide in a few of my own topics in here as well while I'm at it. So let's go ahead and get started here. All right, so I'm going to just cover, basically I'm going to go over PHP version usage, both at Bluehost and more globally, because I do have those numbers as well. And applications, which we're referring to the types of applications and which applications are being installed and used on Bluehost by our customers. And then we'll also go over some surveys that we handed out to a large number of our customers. I think we've gotten, it's over a number of different surveys in here. And so we'll cover those. And so that gets into answers about the customers that we don't have by looking at their directories in there. Like we can see what they have installed, but we have no idea what they're using it on without actually looking at the websites, and we're not going to go through 4,000 websites for customers and try to hash this out. So we sent out surveys for this to kind of dive deeper into what kind of, what our customers are hosting on our servers and what it is they like to see. And then I would like as much participation as we can get on open discussion, because I'm sure these stats bring up a number of questions. And then, and I'm sure I'll have time to do this, I'm going to talk a little bit about our internal PHP use. So not just our customers, but what Bluehost is doing with PHP ourselves here. And for one, that's WordPress for sure, because I do a lot of WordPress work myself, but I'm going to cover some other projects that we do too. All right, so Endurance International Group is the parent company behind Bluehost. Many people don't know that, some people know that. Who here has heard of Endurance International Group? Okay, we got a couple people in here. Endurance International Group, it's not just the parent company for Bluehost, it's the parent company for a number of other brands that you probably have heard of, including HostGator. So we've got like HostGator in there, we've got iPage, FatCow, HostMonster, FastDomain, Domain.com, Homestead, Intuit Websites, and probably about 45 other hosting brands that you may have heard of. Monopoly. So if you're switching between share hosts, there's a pretty good chance you're on one of the servers that the company I work for runs under. Unless you're at either GoDaddy or DreamHost, then you're not under us. Just a quick note on this too. Most of the stats that I'm going to be presenting on here actually come from a paper that we helped publish along with O'Reilly Media. And so that paper is called The Economic Impact of Open Source on Small Business. It's a case study that we did in 2012. So these stats are a little bit older. They're getting a little bit outdated. But I didn't want to give you numbers that, I haven't run the most recent numbers on all of these things. And so I didn't want, I can give you rough estimates, but I don't want anyone quoting me on numbers that I'm not sure about. So we're going to go with the ones in the study. So that is going to be a little bit older, but also if you want to look deeper into this paper, the paper is, you can get it for free from O'Reilly if you fill in some personal info that I'm sure you don't really care to do. But the cheap shot to doing this is that Amazon actually has this paper. It's about a 50-page report, and it goes way into more depth than I'm going to go into in this presentation of stats on our customers, what they're using it for, how much money they're making from their websites, and a number of things that go more along the monetary values. And that's available on Amazon for free as well in a Kindle edition. So you just find it on Amazon. You can just download it there too. Okay, so first off, let's get into the technical specs here. I went and pulled up, some of you probably have seen these graphs before. These are numbers reported by WordPress on WordPress.org. They keep track of statistics on which versions of PHP are in use. They also keep track of versions of MySQL and versions of WordPress, of course. And this is across every WordPress installation, not just on our servers at Bluehost, and not just the other Endurance servers as well. This is over GoDaddy, this is over DreamHost, this is over everyone. And so these are global numbers. This is current as of Thursday. So most of you probably noticed here, as sad as it seems, PHP 5.2 is the majority of websites. So if you're ever curious to know why it is that WordPress will not drop 5.2 compatibility yet, this is your answer. We lose half of our WordPress base that will not be able to update their WordPress installations, possibly fall back on security vulnerabilities. In reality, I mean, we get this question on, I do a lot of the work on the WordPress core project as part of the open source outreach group here, and we see across the WordPress mailing list all the time this question of, when are you going to drop 5.2 support? And most people don't like to even face the reality of the truth, but it's really looking like that's not going to happen anytime in the next 3 years at least. As sad as that is, that probably will not happen for quite a while. There is better news coming up here though. Okay, so let's look at the training graphs on PHP here. This is also from WordPress.org. So the last numbers in here, the 2014 Q1, those are the numbers I just showed you here, the most recent ones. You can see a trend though, and it is dropping significantly here. The blue line is PHP 5.2, the red line is 5.3, and the yellow is PHP 5.4. There are other versions in here, they're all less than 1%. But you can start to see this trend of people adopting PHP 5.4 globally here. I use WordPress's stats because in at least our purview, this is the most widely adopted piece of PHP software across every hosting company. So it tends to be a very good number that they start research out of. You can see that people are still actually adopting PHP 5.3 over time, as opposed to 5.2. For ourselves, though, for Bluehost, we can get into those numbers here. Let's start looking at our stats for Bluehost specifically, though. And I wanted to break this down. Skip a slide here. I'll jump into the PHP versions on Bluehost here in a little bit, but to give you an idea of where we stand at Bluehost though, and again, from here on out, these numbers are from our 2012 study. 43% of our customers have PHP files installed on their accounts. And what probably surprises a lot of people is that 37% of our customers, the next major use, is only static files. There's no scripted languages used in any of their websites. Now, these can come from static site generators. There's probably a lot of front page websites back in there. There might even be some older Dreamweaver sites. Well, I'm sure there's a lot of Jekyll sites just as well too. People using static site generators to generate their site and then upload it up to their accounts for their website. It's not a terrible thing. And it's also possible that a number of those are also generated by PHP as well. But obviously, PHP takes the cake for the majority of usage on our servers here. And it's worth noting that our servers on Bluehost, and also I should note that all these numbers are just from Bluehost numbers. These aren't from Endurance International Group. These aren't from our other brands. These are specifically Bluehost numbers, but it still represents roughly somewhere around 2 million customers across 2.5 sites per customer. So somewhere around like 5 million websites that we derive these numbers from. We do offer Perl. You can run Perl CGI scripts on Bluehost shared accounts. You can also run Ruby, and you can run Ruby on Rails apps. You can also run Python apps as well. But we do not see that happen on our servers often. Turns out PHP really was a great language, and all those other people that are like, you know, Ruby is the new obvious, PHP sucks. The numbers don't lie. They still haven't overtaken, and this has not changed even up till now in 2014. This is 2012, but PHP still remains our #1 most used language here. So let's jump to the next one here. One-click installations. So this is getting into the actual specific applications that we see installed on Bluehost. And there are a lot. We offer one-click installations across, let's see, we offer 70 different software packages that our customers can install using one-click. They don't have to set up a database themselves manually. They don't have to go install the files. One-click installs. They log into the control panel. They select their software. They click install. It's done for them. The domain's set up. The database is initialized. User accounts are all set up for the database. And obviously, our most popular one ends up being WordPress in the end. And this number, this 2012, it was 38% of customers would one-click install WordPress over any other package. Today, now in 2014, that's actually roughly closer to around 60%. That has grown quite a bit. So like 60% of our one-click installations are WordPress. And the next runner-up here, we have Joomla. Joomla tends to be pretty popular as a content management system as well. And followed right behind that is Drupal, another content management system. You see the trend here, it's that people love content management systems. We do see Magento, PrestaShop, OS Commerce. We do have a number of online shopping cart sites. They don't happen nearly as frequently as content management systems, but one other thing to keep in mind in here too is that WordPress can be a shopping cart system if you use the right plugins on it, and so we do see a lot of customers do that as well. The other category here covers a wide range of other applications in here. We said there's some 70 applications, and I'm going to go ahead and we've categorized them into 26 different categories, and so it gives you a good idea of what types of applications our users are installing. And the other category is pretty big on its own. So we just see people using their websites for a number of different reasons. And so some of those categories, they can include doing backups, website backups, blogs, and CMSs, of course. We see business tools, which I'm not sure what's covered under that category. We see classifieds, and if people running their own little Craigslist. We see client management. We see e-commerce, of course. We see education. We have applications like Moodle for training purposes and things like that. We see forums and surveys, forums, PHP, BB, pretty popular on there. We see guest books. We see help centers. We see live chat systems for companies that want to offer live chat support. We see mailing lists. So PHP list is actually pretty popular too. And we do allow mailing list use through our servers. We see photo galleries, product sourcing, project management, RSS security, social networking, statistics, utilities, webmail software. We offer webmail to our customers, and they still install additional webmail software on their sites themselves. And it could be that they're actually setting that up with domains that are hosted outside of Bluehost as well. But, and then we see web designs and wikis as well. So that covers like the general categories that we tend to see. All right, let's move on to our actual surveys. So when we surveyed our customers, and this is these are based on responses that did come back from about 4,000 customers. We asked our customers, how much experience do you have creating websites? 31% said they were beginners. They really didn't know much about creating websites at all. 40% said they were intermediate. You know, they've launched a couple WordPress sites. 15% said they're advanced, they've done some coding work, and 14% said they were professional web developers launching their websites on there. So you can kind of see that, you know, most of our customers don't know much about actually building websites themselves, and obviously that's why our one-click installers are very awesome. But it's crazy to think about the fact that even though, you know, most of our clients or most of our customers use PHP, more than half of them don't even know what PHP is. You know, they've used the one-click installers, their application's working for them, and that's all they care about. That's all they need. So another question we asked was, who built your website? 75% said that they built it themselves, which would just imply that they've done the one-click installs. They've selected a theme, and they've installed a few plugins, and that's all they needed. 13% said that they had a third party do it. They usually then outsourcing it out to a professional web design company, some agency or some contractor. 6% said within their organization, and could have been their nonprofit organization or their company. And 6% said they had a family or a friend do it. Let's see here. I think I may have had notes on that one too. Oh, I skipped a slide. Sorry, let's go back one. Okay, websites by use. I did skip one in here. All right, so what I was going to cover before here too is that 60% of our customers are small and mid-sized businesses. We've known this for a long time that we cater mostly to SMBs. That has been our target audience for the longest time here. But 11% are nonprofits, and I think this is a little bit higher than most hosting companies because we do have this awesome program for nonprofits where we basically give them free hosting. They just need to be validated that they have their correct 501c3s. And then 22% is for personal use, and 7% was somewhere mixed in there. It was somebody not sure on that one. Some other interesting facts is that, let's jump into. All right, let's actually jump into the purposes for our website now. This, I think, is the most telling graph on here. I think this really says a lot about everything else in there. And this, I think, I don't know, who here is a web designer that's either doing contract work or works with an agency, do website design and launching websites. So I'm curious if you guys kind of see this trend too from projects that you've worked on as well. But we tend to see that somewhere close around 20% of websites that are hosted by Bluehost, this is primary purpose for websites. So they may have had multiple purposes, but we asked them what their primary purpose for their website was. And some 20% said it's just informational. I'm just putting up some basic content. which definitely lends its hand to WordPress being installed to do that.
Just an extended business card.
Yeah, an extended business card, which also leads to the next one too, which is close to 23% on that. But our next highest reason was brand and credibility, which is still informational websites for the most part. And maybe credibility leads to there was some extra functionality on the site. But we do tend to find that the total for informational, in the category of informational websites that aren't selling something or taking donations or doing some kind of e-commerce, it lands somewhere around like 50% of websites that we host. So I wish I put the end numbers on here. So up next we have promotional purposes. Anyone advertising for specific events, specific products. I'm not sure exactly what that one covers entirely. And then we have customer service. So that's anyone that's, their website is purely there just for their customers to contact them and get support on whatever service or product it is that they provide. And then down at 6%, we only had 6% of websites, their primary purpose was e-commerce, shopping carts or anything like that. Not to say that there aren't other categories that involve taking money online or doing transactions. Close to, I think it was about 17% here. Their primary purpose was to generate leads, generate contacts, and just fill out your information, get this free paper at O'Reilly, and we'll contact you later to try to sell you something. And then up next here we had somewhere around 4%, we had appointments, just wanting their customers to be able to make appointments to see them in person and to do so online entirely. 10% was about community. So these were the ones that were using like PHP, PB forms and things like that. We also saw, I think I see roughly about the same number of people doing PHP, PB forms as there are people who do BuddyPress on top of WordPress for their community forms. And then a very small percentage do recruiting. They're just there to put their website up so that they can hire people. And then another percentage were for fundraising, and that mostly falls under the nonprofit categories. And that pretty much covers most of the stats that I managed to get into slides here. There are more stats on our customers here, and there's more details in the surveys that are in that O'Reilly paper. But I'm just curious, does anyone kind of have questions about where those stats lie or interested in other stats that I may not have covered?
It's pretty interesting that half of websites out there is just non-application.
Or just informational websites.
Which a lot of the people can do themselves using CMS.
Yeah. I did have one interesting number on here, and that was that despite the fact, I'm going to pull up this report real quick because there was a number in there. Maybe I'll get to it later here. I'm going to say that report also does contain numbers on how many of the websites do actually do transactions versus non-transactions, and that includes taking donations for nonprofits. I think I said earlier, like 11% of our customers are nonprofits, and only about 2% of them are taking online donations. The rest are informational sites for the nonprofit. But on the business side, I think it was something like it was around 12 or 13% have an online shopping cart or doing transactions. But despite the fact that that's down at like 12 to 14%, it was something like, I think it was somewhere around 20 to 25% of our customers said that they generate more than half of their business revenue from their website. Even though, so it's obviously way more customers than the half that are even doing transactions. But what they consider, the reason why they say this, that we kind of figured out in our surveys, is that these people, they tend to, it's the ones taking the leads for contacts, it's the ones doing support, that if they lost their website, they would lose half their revenue because they've lost those leads or because they've lost those customers that are relying on that for customer support. Now, what does this get to in terms of PHP use? So our users, for informational, you could just generate a static site up there. But we all know the power of WordPress as a CMS to empower our users to edit content on their sites by themselves with no help, without needing to know PHP, without needing to know how to upload files up via FTP, things like that. And obviously you're going to need some kind of server-side engine if you're going to do any kind of contact forms or community forms or anything that's going to require that back-end database. Is there any other kind of trends that other people have kind of seen for other uses for websites that maybe are outside of what we've kind of seen on our servers? Is that pretty representational of what you think is out there for the web?
What about like other kinds of things, like hosting an API or like
REST APIs? That's a good question. We didn't see that pop up in our surveys. And maybe I'm personally working on, one of the projects I'm working on for WordPress is actually adding a REST API into WordPress, like getting that integrated into core. We already have a plugin for it, and it does most things already. You can already query the REST API for posts, media, pages, things like that, users, authors. Stuff like that. I'm actually working on core usage, but there's a number of applications that do already have REST APIs built in, but they don't fall under the purview of the surveys.
I think it goes with who's using Bluehost. Like if you want to expose a REST API, you're probably not paying $6 a month for hosting.
Yeah, that may be true too. If you need to get a REST API up, chances are you're looking for super reliability, and you're probably one of those people that's using a configuration management system to provision and deploy your application, usually onto cloud services, which Bluehost doesn't really have much of. Yeah, we definitely see a different customer base than your typical AWS cloud provider customers, or Rackspace's cloud is their customer base is very different from ours. Bluehost, a little bit of history. Bluehost started out in '96, and from that point up until just last year here, it was only shared hosting. That's the only service we provided. It was just last year that we just started doing VPS and dedicated servers, and even then, we still don't have an API to launch new servers. I do think that may come in the future. It's not on our radar at the moment, though.
So going back to the PHP version problem, what's causing that hang up on files?
Oh yeah, let's jump back to the PHP version issue. Let's go back and.
Yeah, because I saw Andrew Nason give a keynote over the summer about WordPress and why they're kind of hung up on some of the older versions, and he seemed to blame the hosts.
Yeah, so we've gotten the blame at one point. Bluehost has, that's for sure. And certainly we are partially to blame. I should have gotten a graph up of this actually if I'd gotten the solid numbers. Right now though, and this has changed drastically from 6 months ago. 6 months ago, a majority of our customers were on PHP 5.2. In fact, more than this pie chart. I think some like 70 or 80% of our customers were on PHP 5.2. Like 6 months ago.
I ran a site for a little while on HostGator, and I know they gave me, I think it was like a command line option to run a different version of PHP.
Right, we do offer that even on the Bluehost servers too. If you can specifically name one, we alias the PHP command to whichever one you selected in your cPanel account. And that's kind of a cPanel thing entirely too.
But if I went and fired up a brand new Bluehost account right now, I would get 5.2.
You would get 5.4.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we are defaulting customers to 5.4 and have since August. Not only have we done that at Bluehost, but we've been forced migrating old users off of PHP 5.2 and off of 5.3 and up to 5.4. So right now the Bluehost graph actually is more than 50% of our customers are running PHP 5.4. Less than 50% are running PHP 5.2, and 0% are running PHP 5.3. We actually removed PHP 5.3 off of our servers.
What about 5.5?
We don't have 5.5 yet. That will definitely come as soon as we can possibly get that on there. I'm surprised we don't have it up there yet.
What's the latest stable? Sorry, I wish it was, but
Yeah.
what is the latest stable?
5.5. Yeah, it's 5.5. And 5.6 is due June. In June is 5.6 is going stable. So, yeah, a little disappointing. At least we're not behind anybody else on 5.5. and now we're way ahead of everyone on 5.4. I can't tell you. We started doing these mass migrations. We started migrating 10 to 15,000 accounts per day on a weekday. So we weren't doing them over the weekend. Yeah, because people's applications do break. And we're trying to be really smart about which ones we upgrade. We scan these directories, we look for older WordPress versions. If we do find a customer that's on a really old version of WordPress, like before 3.0, we know that 3.0 of WordPress was the version that finally added solid support for PHP 5.4. So if we detect that there's a customer using an older version of WordPress and they haven't upgraded WordPress yet, we'll actually hold off on migrating them. We'll give them time to still try to migrate themselves. We did already send out notices telling all of them that we were going to force upgrade them like back in September. So all of them have been warned.
Did you tell them that they were also going to get hacked immediately?
I'm sure we didn't word it quite like that.
They're running before a 3.0 version?
There is, you guys are probably familiar, PHP 5.2 does have a number of security vulnerabilities in it that that are well known now that will never be patched officially in PHP. It never released as a security release. But there are actually groups out there that are maintaining custom community patches for security holes. I think Google is kind of behind one of those projects. We are actually, we custom compile our copies of PHP, and we are applying some of those patches. So,
which seems like the WordPress part of it.
Yeah. In my experience, it is the WordPress part that is more often hacked than PHP. There was that. Honestly, I don't know what happened with you guys. I don't know if you've ever heard Rasmus talk about the DOS issue with PHP 5.2 and below. It's where you could add in multiples of 1024 into your get variables in an array, and because of the hashing mechanism in arrays, it would cause hash collisions in an array. But you throw it into a get variable, and it's got to initialize it in your get variables for PHP, and so you can actually, because of the hash collisions, you've got to send a huge array of these numbers in, but you can actually take down a server doing this. And that protection was only fixed in PHP 5.3 and above. So this is a known issue with PHP 5.2 that's never going to be fixed in 5.2. And honestly, I couldn't tell you exactly what our policy has been on that for the 5.2 patches and whether or not we do have a custom solution in there. But I believe it was never fixed in 5.2 because of the architecture of the issue. So there were new limitations that could only be fixed in 5.3 and above. On the other hand, though, we have other custom systems that keep limitations on PHP processes and kill them if they become a problem. It's something, our company founder, Matt, is behind the Better Linux kernel. or the Better Linux project, and so he's built this whole custom kernel with a custom CPU scheduler and daemons that are like they're designed to be used for shared hosting. So that's kind of where Bluehost really jumped into that market.
Do you do any kind of like specific WordPress optimization on any of your shared servers?
We don't for the shared servers, for the one-click installations. Obviously on shared servers, we can't use an object cache. And that's certainly like the first place I jump to when I'm optimizing a WordPress site. I add an object cache and it's instantly 10 times faster.
Right.
That's the first thing I jump to. But on a shared server, we can't do that. We don't have APC, we don't have memcache, and we can't offer those because it would be a huge security hole, since everyone else would have access to your memory. But we are working on, and this is no secret, we don't have it out yet, but we've been talking about it for a long time here. We are working on a managed WordPress product, and it's going to be powered off of our VPS. It's basically going to be a VPS, except it's going to be optimized for WordPress by default. And that actually includes doing something we've never done before on our servers. We use Apache across our entire field. For this WordPress optimized hosting, we're switching that to Nginx. And we've never done that before on any of our servers. So that's quite the change from there. But yeah, we are gonna, that same product's it's gonna have a built-in object cache by default. It's even gonna have built-in page caching as well.
Is that just for speed, to switch to Nginx?
Yeah, it's a little bit of speed. Also, WordPress has been pretty good about, I don't know if you know this, but WordPress.com runs off of Nginx. So they're really big about supporting Nginx as well. And even though they have all the code to automatically do your WordPress permalinks with .htaccess files that get automatically written out to your root, they're working on those for Nginx as well. So you know, it's got good support from behind the guys who make WordPress. And it's generally what they use and recommend, so we figure we have done the benchmarks as well, and it's just slightly, it's not like super performant over Apache, but it does do a lot faster. Yeah, the PHP versions, that gets me all the time. All right, there's nothing else in here. I can, how much time do I have here? Another 10 minutes or so. I can talk about internal projects that we do in PHP for Bluehost. So like I said, our customers definitely use PHP a lot. But also Bluehost has most of our entire stack for our entire company is built on open source software. Most of it's in Linux. We have I think we have 2 racks of Windows servers. So we do have some ASP.NET websites out there, but those racks came from company acquisitions from like 4 or 5 years ago, and we do not offer Windows servers to our customers now. We're just maintaining old ones. But like our entire stack, aside from that, we use Moodle to do training on our tech support, our billing, our verifications, things like that. We run all of our tech support through Moodle training courses now. Our Bluehost blog is powered by WordPress. We have an internal company wiki powered by MediaWiki. Some other projects, we recently, Endurance recently acquired Mojo Themes, Mojo Code. For those not familiar with this company, they offer WordPress themes and WordPress plugins. They're like a premium plugin and theme directory. They're not, if you've heard of like Code Canyon or what's the other one for themes? ThemeForest, yes. Mojo Marketplace is kind of a competitor to that. And so Endurance actually just recently acquired them last year here. And Mojo Marketplace is all built on PHP. And then this last project on here is actually my own, which is why I'm going to jump into that one. It's the plugin mirror. And I've also built that on PHP. I'm a fan of not just WordPress, but when I need a web application framework, Matt Mulwick might tell you to go use WordPress anyway. Personally, I'm a fan of actually using a web application framework. So Cake PHP is mine of choice there. All right, so the plugin mirror, since I work on WordPress so much here, recently here, WordPress did get official GitHub, or not GitHub, but they did get official Git mirrors, because everything in WordPress is done through SVN still. It's a huge pain in the neck. But they do have official mirrors of WordPress core in Git, but they still have all the plugins and themes are running on SVN. And they absolutely require you, if you want to do a plugin release on WordPress.org, you have to commit it to SVN. You can't just upload the plugin. You actually have to manually use SVN to make your commits. Then you have to tag your release, and if you don't tag your release, it doesn't go up on WordPress.org. So I've started a new project that's going to work on mirroring every plugin that's on WordPress.org, all 40,000 of them, up to GitHub. And this is a long and arduous process. Bluehost has actually thrown in, I think somewhere, I don't know the total value. I've got 2 EP servers running in the data center here. I think it's like probably about $20,000 worth of hardware to run this site here. And all it does is it clones plugins and syncs them up to GitHub. So as you can see on GitHub right now, oh, maybe not. There, maybe speaker deck will work better. Or not.
Do you have any stats on frameworks?
No, I don't have any framework stats. That would be interesting to see.
What about stats on downtime?
On what?
Downtime?
Downtime.
0.
Yeah, I wish.
Less than 1%.
Some of you may have heard, we've had two major outages at Bluehost in the last year, which have been pretty significant. Nobody's, I can tell you now, no hosting company is invulnerable to downtime.
Was one just a few weeks ago?
Yeah, it was pretty close to it. I think it was about a month ago here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even your site was down, right?
Well, our Bluehost, our own site was down, but so was all of our customers in the Provo data center, which also my plugin mirror was.
Yeah, I don't check my Bluehost account that often, but I checked that day and I was like, whoa. I checked Bluehost.com, I was like, whoa.
Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a bunch of stuff on
Everything's down.
Twitter about the plugin mirror being down.
Yeah.
Oh yeah? Yeah. Hi, have you been through the plugin mirror on here?
No, I'm kidding.
Come on.
Well, no,
See
the plugin
here.
mirror looks cool. I was joking about the Twitter being worried about the plugin mirror.
Yeah. So 16,000 repositories that I have mirrored up to GitHub now, which actually makes me the third largest organization on GitHub. Another 1,000, and I'm the second largest. And that's coming in another like 2 or 3 weeks. It is working on mirroring them right now.
Who's the largest?
The largest is CPAN. Somebody is mirroring all of CPAN up to GitHub, except they're not doing full code history. They're taking the tags out of CPAN modules, downloading just the tags and committing those. So it doesn't contain the full code history, but it is a backup of all of CPAN that's on GitHub, and they have 22,000 repositories. By the time I'm done, I'll be up at 40,000, which will then make me the #1 largest organization on GitHub. Trust me, I've already cleared this with GitHub to make sure they were good with it. They have really awesome APIs in here. In fact, let's just pull it up right now. Or not. Well, technical
is there any kind of connection to, I know that there are some plugins who are stored on GitHub. Anyway, is there any kind of link made between something you're cloning and maybe the official repo on GitHub?
Whatever repos I am mirroring up here, they're fully and completely synced with whatever plugins I have cloned up there at this point. So the 16,000 that I do have cloned, those are fully up to date at all times.
I'm just curious if the actual developer of the plugin is hosting his code on GitHub.
Oh,
Is there any
yes,
connection
yes,
between those
I
two?
see what you're saying here. And in fact, there are a number of plugins that do that.
Mhm.
Some of you have probably heard of, if you do plugin development on WordPress, most plugin developers have heard of GitHub sync scripts. People use all these crazy sync scripts that just basically take their Git checkout, copy it into an SVN checkout that's already tied to WordPress.org, and then does an automatic commit and the automatic tag to do their release and everything, which I find a little mean because the SVN repos are the official repos, and if you have other developers that are interested in contributing back to the project, they're kind of expected to check out SVN, but you're not using SVN, so you've lost the entire code history. You can't go back and do blames or things like that get lost in the history. Which is why I'm the bigger fan of this method, because this uses Git SVN clones, and so these clones are, they're the entire code history, and they preserve everything, usernames on commit, dates, and everything else. It's kind of cool. It's up and running out. This has been running to get to 16,000. It's been running since June or July of last year.
Wow.
Yeah. It has, despite the $20,000 worth of hardware, I can only clone one plugin at a time. This actually has a lot to do with the architecture that WordPress did. They were not very smart when they set up the plugins SVN repo. Every single plugin in that 40,000 plugins is in one SVN repository. Just one.
Wow.
One big one. It's actually...
That's a huge repository.
It's a huge repository. It has over 800,000 revisions with commits from authors, despite the fact that authors are using Git and doing single commits that are rolling up like 20 commits from GitHub. It's still 800,000 commits or so.
How big is that?
I've got, in order to implement this, I've got an SVN sync mirror of it running, and that's one of the servers is running the SVN sync mirror. So I've got a local SVN copy. The reason I do that is Git SVN has to talk to SVN. And if I do that to WordPress's plugins repository, it's way, way slower. Right now I can clone one plugin every roughly 7 minutes on average. If I didn't run that SVN sync mirror, it would take 2 weeks to do one plugin. The network overhead is pretty, it hurts quite a bit. The SVN repo though, I believe, it depends on, I actually did, the repo size depends on which version of Subversion you're using. And it depends very, very greatly. Let me show you what I mean by that. There's an open ticket on this as well, which I wrote up in here. Maybe I should actually do a search for it here. But you remember the ticket number offhand. The repo size, though, it reaches, if you're using Subversion 1.6 or 1.7, it can reach up to, I think it was something like 700 gigs. 700 gigabytes in one repository. You might be surprised how little it can get down to, because Subversion 1.8 came out with a fix. And the major fix was that the way that the WordPress plugins repo works is all 40,000 plugins are in one root directory. And so that one directory contains 40,000 folders. And SVN does not play well with that in 1.6 or 1.7. In fact, it doesn't play well with it in 1.8 if you use the default settings. So you have to enable this new feature that they added in Subversion 1.8. There it is. And trusted track to be able to do your search.
What does WordPress do with the old plugins that aren't supported any longer? So like, do they retire them, or do they just kind of float out there?
Something out there that's still using them.
Yeah.
They keep them listed unless they detect that there's a security issue. Unless there's a licensing or security issue, those plugins stay listed, and they end up having a warning that comes across when you're about to install them. This plugin's older than 2 years old, you might not want to check this out. Otherwise, they stay on there. And if they do have a security hole or a licensing issue or a copyright infringement issue, they will be delisted off of WordPress.org, but they will remain in the SVN repo because there's only one repo and you can't change history. So those plugins are still there. Here was the repository size back when I was doing some research on this about 6 months ago. We're up over 700 gigabytes. The blue line is actually representing individual pack sizes, which is something that should not have ever been growing in the first place. But this is because of that bug in SVN. Those pack sizes should have never gone over like 100 megabytes. An individual pack is just a package of 1,000 of the revisions. And it's just deltas, so that should stay fairly constant. It should grow with the growth of, I guess even with more numbers of commits, it's still 1,000 revisions. Here's what happens when you use 1.8. It stays mostly even. And now all of a sudden the repository is only 16 gigabytes.
Wow.
Yeah, how about that? So if you're ever considering adding a lot of folders in one folder in SVN, use 1.8 and turn on this feature. It's called directory deltas in 1.8. Yeah. I'm sure we're totally out of time here, probably cutting into. Yeah, I guess we got 5 minutes here until the next block here. But thanks a lot, you guys, for staying and listening.